Hello everybody, I hope you're well. It's Ian here from SimBuild UK. I'm going to start with an apology. With what's going on in the world at the moment with the lockdown and everything, I just haven't had a chance to get out here and get on with my build. I've got my 2-year-old daughter which I've been looking after every day, and obviously she takes up a lot of time. Not that I'm complaining, because I love her to bits and love looking after her. But I had a delivery the other day from cockpit.simparts.co.uk. They've bought my full MIP, which we'll do another view of in a later video, and this FMC which I've just started working on tonight, and I thought I'd just lay out the parts and just show you how it comes from Cockpit Sim Parts. So over here we've got the backplate, which you obviously mount all your buttons to. Please ignore all the little holes. They're what I've drilled, and we'll get to that later on in this video to show you what I've been doing. But as standard, it just comes with the single holes that you can see, the big holes. So all your buttons mount to this one, and your rotary encoder, and the execute LED, and obviously your screen and your buttons up the side here. So everything's painted both sides in the Bowen grey. Looks like 5mm perspex. It might be something different. It's really strong. Some sort of composite maybe. Then you have your middle layer, which goes on top of this one and on top of your buttons. Again, same thickness, painted both sides in the Bowen grey. This one I've made a slight cutout to fit my screen in, which I've still got to do on the bottom one as well, which we'll get to later on. And then finally you've got your top layer, which is the one you see that's got the markings. What else you get? You get a fake handle, which you'll see when we put it all together. You've got your raised part that have all your sort of next page and reference buttons, etc. This one's also got the execute light in it and the brightness control. This piece is just a packing layer, which you'll see when we put it together. And then finally, obviously, the bag full of all the buttons and the spacers. One note about the buttons, which Sam was kind enough to let me know. Sam, who runs Cockpit Sim Parts, just sent me a message to say, as the buttons come, you can see the quality of the engraving there, it's superb. As the buttons come, on the back they are black, so obviously that's not going to let any light through. But what they do is they leave the plastic film on the back here, and you've just got to pick it off, and then it becomes white and transparent for your backlight to shine through, if you are backlighting your buttons, which I am. You have to excuse the dirty fingers as well, I've been drilling black plastic. Okay, so how does it all fit together? Well, you start off with your bottom piece, your back piece, which has your buttons fitted to it. So basically, once I've finished drilling all the holes, we fit the buttons in there like that. Next up would be your middle layer. Obviously it's all going to sit, it's not going to sit straight because I'm sitting on one button. And then your screen, go in there like that. This screen, I will put a link in the description. It's about 30 quid, I think. It's not too bad. The quality's, I've had it running with the FMC, it's fine. I got it from eBay, I believe, but I will link it. And then finally your top layer would go on there like that, with your packing piece and your raised part. off. And the bag of goodies. With a key. And the packing bit. So that would drop in. You would glue, obviously peel the back off your key, glue these two parts together. And then they would drop in there like that. And what that gives you is just a slightly raised key. Obviously the E wouldn't go there, but you get what I mean. And then your fake handle, just glue on there or fix on there. Yeah, you don't have to put it on. Obviously the real one they would pick it up and pull it out, but obviously this is just for show. So price, currently on cockpit sim parts it's £115. Obviously you don't get the screen with that, but you get all the other parts that I've showed you. Obviously you don't get your switches, but you get all the painted keys, all the backing plates, the face plate, everything like that. Well, I think for £115 I've got a laser cutter, and I did think about cutting this myself, and yeah, the back parts wouldn't be too much of an issue, but sitting there painting all these keys, I didn't know if I fancied that. I thought for £115, by the time I bought the plastic, the paint, etc., it's just saved me a lot of work, and allowed me to sort of try and get on with it as best I can, given the current situation. But fingers crossed there will be over soon and I can crack on. I think I've got a house move to do in the middle as well, so obviously that's going to disrupt things again. But I want to try and get some of these smaller bits done while I can, and obviously the mitt I won't be able to do anything with for now, but I will do a video on it anyway, just to show you what comes from cockpit sim parts. So what I'll do is I'll move the camera and I'll show you what I've been doing about drilling the holes for my buttons. Okay, welcome back. So fitting the buttons, if I can bring one into shot, and there we go. So the buttons I'm using are these 12mm tactile illuminated buttons. They do actually come with another 2 pins here, but I cut them off because you don't need them. Basically the 2 pins each side do the same thing, so I'm just saving drilling myself a bunch of extra holes here by snipping them off. And the 2 outside pins are your LED. But don't be fooled like I was in thinking that the red dot that they put on is the positive side of the LED, because it's not, it's the negative side. Yeah, I know it doesn't make sense to me either, but now I know that, obviously I can put them in the right way when I fit them. And the back panel comes with the big holes already drilled. Unfortunately I can't make use of them because I've got 4 pins that need to go through. So what I've done has been drilling all the holes for the pins to go through. And how I did that was, I like 3D printing, so I designed myself this little template to drill. Took me about 5 minutes to design and 10 minutes to print. So I can basically pop this in there like that and drill my holes, but I discovered that it's able to spin, so I couldn't guarantee on getting my buttons straight. So that design was out and this one was in. So it's basically the same thing, just extended with 2 knobs, if you like, on it. So when I put that in, there we go, it now cannot move at all, and it gives me more to hold while I'm drilling. Obviously this one's well used, as you can see, but those, they just go through and just locate it in 2 holes so that it can't move. So I've got up as far as here, I've just got 2 more rows to do. I'm sorry about my camera, I'm using the D5200, which is a great camera by Nikon, but for doing videos it's no good. I need to look into something else. It's the autofocus that's the problem. If you put it on auto, then it just constantly hunts. It'll be zooming in and out the whole time. So I'm using manual focus, but I need to remember when I show you something near and far that I need to adjust it manually. So a new camera is on the wish list at the moment. So I just finished off these last two rows. I talked about the 12mm switches. Unfortunately, I can't fit the 12mm switches in up here. So basically, I've got bear with me a second. These ones are the equivalent, but in 6mm. They haven't got the LEDs in there. They advertise the LEDs, but I didn't seem to get them. But I can't get a 3mm LED to fit. They're just a touch too tight. So I've got some 1.8mm LEDs on order. Hopefully they'll fit in. If not, I'll have to see into adjusting the 3mm. Just a little file just to take the edge off. Yeah, these ones will be used at the top, and the reason I can't fit them in is because of my screen. The screen just ever so slightly covers the edge of the holes on the back panel. Okay. Just get me a scrap piece of ply up here that I was using to drill onto. So that said, I've just got 2 more rows to do. So plonk that in there like that, and then just with a Dremel, bring my chair over. So of these 6 holes, I'm only using the bottom ones. The reason them ones are there is because obviously when I get to the top, there's nothing for the other lug to locate into, so I can turn it round the other way, and then use what were the top holes here to drill the bottom holes. Last hole. There we go. Clear the crap out of the way. Oh, if there's anything you want to know, if I can help you, I will. Just ask you a question in the comments, and I'll check them every week. Obviously, I've not got enough videos out yet for you guys to ask much, but hopefully when I really get cracking with this, I shall be ordering, now that my MIP's here, I shall be ordering the overhead, purely because of the waiting time of 2 to 4 months. My MIP took just short of 4 months to get here. When he actually sent it, it was next day delivery. Even in, with the COVID-19, it was pretty good coming. But by the time the overhead gets here, I should be all set up in my new house and ready to start putting the actual sim together. So next job on this will be to start fitting the buttons. LED wise, for the backlighting, what I'm going to do is wire in series 4 switches. It's actually slightly too many. It should be 3 switches and a resistor, but these are quite bright, and I think they'll probably be too bright. So with the 4, it just drags down the brightness just a touch. I've had them wired up and they look great, lit up through the buttons with the 4, so I think that's what I'm going to go with. And obviously with the 4 it works out perfectly because there's 8 holes across here, so there'll be a chain of 4, then a break, then another chain of 4. Still a lot of wiring work, and then obviously on top of that, that's just the backlight, and on top of that you've then got the actual button controls. Hardware wise, I'm going to be using the Arduino with Air Manager for this, purely because somebody's already made all the script for the buttons. I had to make my own little bit of script for the message light, which goes in here, and the execute LED, but that wasn't too much of an issue. So I basically tested it and had it all working with my screen and everything, and it looks great. So I'm looking forward to seeing how it's gonna look when it's finished. But for now, that's it. Well, for tonight, that's it. Now it's bedtime. I shall try and get some more done to it this week, and obviously film it and add it onto the end of this clip. So for you it's going to be a couple of second wait, for me it's going to be a week. So I shall see you then. Thanks. Hello everybody, welcome back. It's a couple of days later. I've got as far as now wiring my strings of switches, purely for the backlighting at this stage, in groups of 4, which is wired in series. If you don't know what series is, basically the positive of one LED is wired to the negative of the next LED, and so on through the string. So the first pin is a negative, then positive to negative, positive to negative, positive, and then finishing with a negative, with a positive on the end. Sorry. So you've got a negative this end and a positive this end, and that's how that string of 4 are wired together. I'm not an electronics buff, but Googling and whatever, I found that this is probably the best way for me to wire this up. So the first thing I was struggling with was actually getting these to sit straight and in line while I'm trying to solder it, because they kept moving about, and so it was back to the 3D printer to design myself a little jig. What I've done with these switches is I snipped off the 2 pins that I don't need, and also there's 2 locating lugs on the bottom of the switch, which I snipped off as well to allow the switch to sit flat. So it's simply a case of dropping 4 switches into my jig. What I'll do is I'll give you 2 views of this. I'll give you this view, and then the next set I'll give you a close-up view so you can see what's going on. So always keeping the negative on the right, which is, as we remember from earlier, the one with the red paint on it. Right, so that's 3 in, last one. Last one can be a bit fiddly to get in because that's what makes it all go tight. There we go. Make sure they're all pressed down, and then using some tweezers, just squeezing the pins past each other, so by the time they spring back they're touching, ready to be soldered. There we go. So soldering, I've got my iron set nice and hot because we want to limit how long we're holding the iron on the pins, because obviously you don't want heat to travel down and damage anything further down the switch. So literally just a second on the pins with a nice hot iron is hot enough to melt the solder. We want to get on and off as quick as possible. That's it. And then on the other side, just push the switches out. And there we go, there's a set of 4 LEDs wired together, and I've got one more set to do, which I'll show you a close-up of, and then it's on to running some power through them and testing them just to make sure they all work before we fit them. Okay, this is the same bit again, but obviously a closer up view for you. So the first job on these switches is to snip off the pins that we don't need. And then snip off these locating lugs. Watch your eyes when you do this because they do ping off. So we need to do that on all 4 switches. Obviously remembering to snip off the correct pins that we don't need. So I'm always keeping the red dot upwards when I do this, just to make sure we're cutting them all the right way and they all match. You don't have to cut these pins off, but I was just trying to save myself half the drilling, because if we kept them pins on we'd have to drill 2 more holes for every switch. There we go. Okay, so loading them into the jig, you can see it's just a simple jig that I 3D printed. So keeping the negative on the right, and like that. Next one, negative on the right. Negative on the right. And the final one, negative on the right. There we go. just using the tweezers to make sure they're all pushed down nice and flat. I'm sorry if you can hear my 3D printer in the background. I'm printing the next part of the project after the FMC. So there we go. Right, for the pins, literally just, I hope you can see this on camera, squeezing them past each other, and then by the time they spring back they're virtually touching. And there we go. When they're naturally resting now, they're pretty much touching each other, ready to take the solder. And soldering, like I said earlier, just as quick as you can onto the pins and off them. Just going to give them two another squeeze. Okay. On and off. Here we go. And then pop the switches out. That's it. That's all the switches that are going to be joined like this done. I'll explain what I'm going to do with the other ones because the holes aren't as close together, so what we're going to have to do is just run a piece of wire between each of the switches. Okay, on to testing what we've done so far. With regards to backlighting, I've been mulling over what I was going to do with how to turn them on and off, and I came across these 12 to 24 volt LED dimmers on Amazon. So I picked one of them up and they work really well. I've just temporarily rigged it up here so that we can test out our strings. I've got 10 of these strings of 4 to test to make sure they're all okay. So it's just a case of negative on the red dot on the switches. The power supply I'm using is 12 volts. So that's the first string. Let's turn the dimmer on. And there we go. And I don't know if it's picking it up on the camera, but they are extremely bright. So there's no worries there about running 4 instead of 3 in a resistor. I think the forward voltage of these LEDs was 3.3, something like that. So in theory, to get full brightness we should have, I don't know, 14 volts, but we're running 12, so they're slightly dimmer than what they should be, but they're plenty bright enough. That's full brightness. In fact, I'll do just flick the lights off. The sun's just coming up, so it's not particularly dark in here, but this might give a better effect of how bright they are. And then they're dimmable right down to virtually nothing. So that one's fine. Let's turn the lights back on now. Last thing I want to do is get these all wired in and then find that there's something wrong with one of them. With them being wired in series like this, if one LED of the string of 4 blows, they all go out, so you'll lose the whole 4. So them ones are fine. They're fine. Yep. What I plan to do with that dimmer is, obviously that'll be the one that goes in the pedestal, which will control all the pedestal backlighting and the FMC backlighting. So when it comes to doing the pedestal, I'll take it to pieces and get the gubbins out of it, so you haven't got this big black box, and just use what's in there. One more to test. Yep, all good. Blimey, I surprise myself sometimes. So that's all the strings done. Next job is to start fitting them into the backplate. What I've got to do is, because these pins are not quite long enough to go all the way through to the back so I can solder them once they're in, what I've got to do is pass the wires through the holes, solder them from this side, and then pull them back through. And then what I'm going to do is just put a little dot of hot glue for each switch just to hold them in place. They're going to be held anyway by the next plate because it sort of pins them in place, but a little bit of extra help won't go amiss. So we've got to do that with the wires for the LEDs and the buttons at the same time for each group of 4. And what I've done is, because of the way I'm doing it like this, joining up the LEDs, because the spacing on here is absolutely perfect. If I can get a close up there, you can see I've actually joined the holes together. So when these go in, literally just line the pins up. I'm trying to do this one-handed, it's not very easy. Line the pins up with the holes. There we go. And they literally just drop in like that. And this is going to be the case, so there'll be a string of 4 here, string of 4 there, and then 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4, 4 and 4, and then this is the bit where we've got to change the wiring because these switches are further, sorry you can't even see it, this point here is where the switches have got to be wired differently because they're not as close together, because they're the bigger buttons for your, initial reference, next page, blah 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 blah. They're further apart, so we can't join them up like we've done down the bottom here. It's not too much, it's only just a case of using a piece of wire between each switch rather than joining the pins directly. What I'm probably going to do is upload this video now and call it part 1, and then part 2 will be the next bit, which is fitting the buttons. We've got to fit the screen, the rotary encoder for dimming, and then actually putting all the layers together and going on the computer and sorting out the software side of it to get them working with the sim. So join me in part 2. If this video has been any help to you whatsoever, please give me a like, subscribe to the channel. There's plenty more to come. Obviously I'm still new to videos. I'm doing the best I can. I'm sure it will get a lot easier as I get used to it a bit more. But yeah, thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next bit.